brace yourself because it's not every day that we get a celebrity chef inside of the podcast. So today I am so delighted to have James Barry here with us to talk about his whole upbringing, when he learned about food, when he learned about the importance of food and how that figured into his career decisions, and his final decision to make being a chef and nourishing us as his life's mission and life's goal. So he's had 16 years in the culinary field. He started as a private chef to a lot of A-list celebrities like Tom Cruise and George Clooney and Gerard Butler, Sean Combs, who we don't like to talk about these days, but Barbara Streisand, John Cusack. I mean, this man has lived and done it. And then he decided that that just wasn't a big enough mission. And we know all about that here because we have big goals and big missions here. And he has one too. So if you want to hear all about it, sit tight, stay tuned, because here comes James Barry.
Okay, so you started off as a chef and kind of worked your way up the ladder. You've worked with some pretty important people, pretty well-known people.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
was
know
going
how
to say,
important
we're
they are.
all important,
Yeah,
Dr.
yeah,
Chen. We are
yeah,
all
yeah,
important.
I hear you. But some pretty well-known people. So talk to me. I actually am fascinated by all of this because my son is very, very interested in this line of work. So I would love to hear like where this came from. Did you always cook? Who taught you to cook? Like, give me the beginnings.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to sound like I'm just being funny, but I grew up in a household where we knew dinner was ready because the smoke detector went off.
Ooh. the star of America's worst chefs.
Yes, so we all start somewhere, and to this day, my mom is still kind of just amazed that she has a chef for a son. But I did, at a very early
Well, we
age.
either grow up exactly like our parents or exactly the opposite.
Yeah. So, and we need contrast to become the opposite. And I had lots of contrast.
There you go.
Yeah. So I actually did have an affinity for cooking at a very young age. I think I learned to scramble an egg at about the age of 7. And I was like hooked. Like from that moment on, I was like trying to cook with my parents in some way, whether it's my dad at the barbecue or my mom in the kitchen, which sounds very stereotypical, but that's kind of how it was back in the 70s. Like dads barbecued and moms did the kitchen stuff. So
Yeah.
that was just
Except for
my
my
reality.
dad who didn't eat neither.
Yeah, there you go. Or they didn't eat. Yeah, exactly. So, but that was my household. And then I was hungry to learn more. I had a neighbor who was much more like a gourmet chef and who would make, I thought it was amazing. He would make spaghetti sauce from scratch. Like that's the kind of house our household was.
Like,
Jars.
wow,
I
yours
was
doesn't
like,
come from a jar.
I was like, what? You don't. Yeah, it is kind of funny. And this goes, of course, with health or anything in life. We only know what we know, right?
For sure. Yep.
And so because I grew up in a household where everything was bought, already pre-made or packaged, my mom was not a baker making cookies. Like that never happened. It was like we had cookies. It was like Oreos, you know what I mean? And so to see, as I've gotten older, to see people like make hummus from scratch. I remember when I went to culinary school and I learned how to make hummus. I thought hummus was this complicated, foreign food that was just no American would ever know how to make. And it was like 4 ingredients. And I was like,
Yeah.
what?
And it's really good when it's only 4 ingredients. It's one of the
Totally.
best things that I make. I was laughing so much when you were saying that your mom never made cookies because I grew up with a working mother. Like I didn't come from nowhere. The leaf doesn't fall very far from the tree. But my mom did make a couple of things. She made homemade spaghetti sauce. It was amazing. She made what we used to call pig slop, which was she made homemade veal parmesan. And so we would have like the stations where we would do the egg and then the flour and then the egg and then the breadcrumb. And so, your like hands get covered in that. She made beef stroganoff. That was like our special occasion thing for
Did you?
when, like, that was our family celebratory meal.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and that's nice.
And
Did you?
then,
What
go
was your
ahead.
next one?
For Jewish holidays, she would make brisket.
Brisket, yeah, which
Yeah.
is so good, even when it's so overcooked like that. Because a
Well,
lot of
I think that that's the point of it. I think you're
well, that
supposed
yeah.
well, also, it was a really, really inexpensive and probably, like, dangerous cut of meat. Like, it was the worst of the worst. So you had to cook it in order to even be able to eat it. You had to, like, overcook it for days to be able to eat it.
And I need a preface. So I'm Jewish. My mother is Jewish, which makes me Jewish. My dad is not, but I'm still Jewish on her side. So a lot of the culture I grew up with is Jewish culture, and as I've gotten older and I'm now more aware of cooking and stuff like that, it is really also cultural. Like the Jewish culture overcooks their food in general, like
Yes.
meats.
Yes.
I didn't mean to say food, but meat,
Yeah.
because that's everything was, you know, had to be
I
overcooked
think it
because if it
was
was
for
meat,
safety reasons.
absolutely. I think it was like burned into everyone's skin. Like, do not eat anything that's pink. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. I mean, and for good reason, of course. I mean,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
get it. But it is interesting, as I had to really unlearn a lot of that. Like, I had to actually learn to like, beef that's more medium rare or rare. And it took some time.
Yeah. So tell me about that. Tell me about culinary school.
Yeah, it was really, it was cooking was not something I saw as a career. We have to remember. So I was born in the early '70s. Back in the day, there were really two chefs on TV. It was not at all like there were no food networks. There was nothing like that. Anyone that's
There was
younger than
Julia Child.
right, it was Julia Childs, and it was there. I remember there was a guy named who was like the Frugal Gourmet, and they were both on PBS.
Oh,
You
I
remember
remember him.
him? Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So there were like
But
two.
then there was something that in the 80s, right? Because in the 80s it started with BAM,
Right.
Emerald.
Emerald,
Emerald
though.
Lagasse came on the scene. Am I wrong? Was it
No, that
was it
wasn't I
later
don't
than
think that
that?
was I don't think it was '80s, but you're right, but he did start coming on talk shows, and morning shows, but he didn't have his own show, if I or maybe he you know what? Maybe you're right, maybe he did.
He had his own show. I just don't remember
But I
when it
think it could have
was.
been the '90s, though, but I could be wrong, but you're right, he was on the scene later, but when I was younger, though, and I was impressionable around this stuff, it was Julia Childs and that other guy. They were both on PBS, so it was
Yeah.
like this offshoot channel, right, that was kinda looked at as not low brow, but low cost, right? So it was
Yeah. Yeah. No,
like
it was
just
bare
like
bones.
right, bare bones, like, you're not gonna make your fortune doing this. So
Right.
didn't see it as a career. I genuinely thought like, oh, this is something I'm going to do as a hobby, because the only other option was to own a restaurant. And for some reason, at 12 years old, I was like, I'm a family man. I can't be working late at night. Like literally, that was the mindset I had.
That's
I'm like,
really interesting that you had that insight because I think most people, like including my husband, I think still has dreams of us owning a restaurant.
oh,
And I'm like, "What
tell him not
who
to.
who's working there?
Yeah,
I can't
exactly.
even handle the jobs I have now."
Exactly. No, owning a restaurant is incredibly low margins, and it's it's a night and day. I mean, and stuff breaks down, you gotta deal with it. I mean, I owned a meal delivery service in LA, and it was yeah, it was different than a restaurant, but it was very close. I mean, we had our own kitchen, we dealt with a lot of the same things restaurants deal with.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's rigorous, and it's exhausting, and it's for the young. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
It's for
Yes,
the
it's
young.
for the young.
I'm interested in working smarter, not harder at this point.
I hear you. I'm gonna get there one of these
Yeah,
days,
right?
but it's not now.
No.
Sadly, unfortunately, it's not now.
But so what I was going to say though is, so I saw cooking as a hobby until 9/11. 9/11 was very much our generation's Pearl Harbor, and
For sure.
it really made me reevaluate my life. And I was pursuing acting as in the entertainment business, and while I loved creativity and I loved that process, I never saw it as the end of the road. I never saw it as like, once I achieve this, I'm done. I always saw it as a stepping stone to all the other things I wanted to do, which was like, you know, cook and work with people and help them with their health, or like write a book, or just other things. And I just saw the acting. I was like, oh, well, if I get big enough name, then it will just make all those other things easier. Well, after 9/11, I was like, why am I waiting? What am I waiting for? And I basically audited my life, and I was like, well, what is it really like? I want every choice from this point on to have heart, to truly be something that I'm here to do. And that's when I re-tapped into cooking, because I was like, that is something I've always loved. Like, why am I waiting? Why am I not looking for other avenues of how to do it? Why am I not thinking outside the box for it? And then poof, all these things started to materialize. I learned about this New York school that was known for healthy cooking, and I eventually
I
started
am
down that.
curious, why was 9/11 so impactful for you? Did you know people, or was it just a wake-up call for you?
Yeah, both. I did, my mother's from Coney Island, used to visit there all the time. I did know people
Mhm.
living there. My cousin was across the bay in Jersey and watched it happen. So it was very real. I think most of us, even to this day, a lot of times war is something we see through a screen.
Yeah,
And we don't always have a connection to it, other than the idea of it, oh, I don't want people to be hurt, or um, or it's a country that I feel close to, or I visited there, something like that. But it doesn't like, the war doesn't come out of the screen and actually tap you on the shoulder. And that
mhm,
that was the first time where it was like, oh, this just happened on American soil. We've been privileged up to this point to not have much happen,
yeah.
and it felt, yeah, it just kind of, I was at that age. I was probably, in my late 20s, and I was just at that age where it was like, time's a ticking. Like, I don't want to be spinning my wheels. I want to get more grounded in why am I on this planet? And I truly believe we all have a why. We just need to tap it. Like, and sometimes it
For
takes a
sure.
lifetime, and sometimes kids are born already knowing, it's
Yeah.
but I do believe that's part of the journey.
So, out of curiosity, because certainly when we came up, around the time that we came up, healthy cooking wasn't really a thing. I
No,
mean,
not at all.
the age of Julia Childs, we don't really think about her creations, while masterful, were not necessarily healthy. And then beyond that, although she was using real food, so I can embrace what she did and what she believed in. And she was amazingly talented and inspired generations of people, for sure. um but those 80s hit, and our dietary values tanked. I mean, we went from a whole food eating society to everything was processed and ultra processed, and the fast food industry exploded.
Loaded.
And how when did healthy cooking become a thing for you?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Do you remember when Snack Wheels came out and how the whole
Oh,
fat-free thing came
oh,
out?
I do. And I remember the 20 pounds that went on my ass when Snackwells came out.
Yeah, yeah. It's just like all that is a part of the journey. But ultimately, what it was, I had this incident happen right out of college where, gosh, I've never actually shared this very openly, but I'm happy to. It's just rarely ever come up. But I had a situation come up where I had been feeling like I hadn't been eating well. And I had had stuff previously when I was a little younger that was clearly indicative of like you're dehydrated, you're not getting enough, whether it's having issues, hemorrhoid kind of stuff or something like that. And so that happened in my teens. So clearly something was wrong, but I didn't understand it. And nor did I have a doctor or parents who were like, "Hey, maybe we should be thinking about what we're
Are
eating."
we allowed to say that you were constipated?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely, yeah. Constipated, like, absolutely. But there was stuff going on that I just once again, you only know what you know. So you don't know to ask questions on something if you don't know about it. And so 2 things happened. I got a kidney stone right out of college.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, which was incredibly painful. And luckily, that doctor, when I asked the question, "How do I ensure this never happens again?" 'Cause, it was, of course, that painful, I did not want a repeat
Yeah.
of this, and fortunately, he said, "Well, what have you been drinking and eating?" Had he not asked me that question, I never would have connected what I drank or ate to the issue. So it was the first time I connected food, and this is I'm like 21 at this point, but it's the first time I connected, "Oh, what you eat affects your health." And
Well,
I
there
had
there was no messaging around that.
none, 0. Like, we live in a very, like, luxurious time where there's more awareness. Now, it doesn't mean we've got it all figured out in the current, the present time, but there's much more awareness now.
Yeah.
And there's much more ability to find out now. I mean, back in the day, remember, a lot of people gosh, I mean, a lot of people didn't get information around the world until someone selling, Encyclopedia Britannica came to their house door,
So true.
because there was no other way to learn. Remember, if you wanted to go
Yes.
on a road trip, you had to go to AAA to get a map,
So true.
right? So there was, you really were limited in this information and what was possible. But that doctor helped a lot. But then the thing that I haven't really talked about as much is that I think I had an eating disorder, and I think that how my eating disorder played out was that I would not think about eating all day because I get very involved in what I'm doing. I'm a bit of a workaholic, and I would not eat, but then I would go crazy because I'm so over hungry, and I would eat all this junk food or like chips or something like that. And there was this period, a few years after the kidney stone and all that, where I was at home and I was very aware. I'm like, "Oh, I'm not eating well." And I was like, "I'm gonna make dinner for myself." And so I baked some chicken, and I was all ready to eat. I had left it out of the oven to, cool off a little bit, and I came to it and it was gone. And it triggered this anger and fear in me that was so intense. And basically what happened is my brother, who was older than me, came in and just ate it. And he and I had a little bit of a, kind of competition thing going on. And so I got so angry at him, and I chased him around the house. I was like, "You effing did this and did that." And then he
This
ran
is
into
incidentally my boys every single day.
so, but we're in our 20s when this happens, by the way. And so he ran into his room and he slammed the door, and I was determined to break down that door, and I punched it as hard as I could, and I fractured my bone in my hand. And I did not this was a very solid door. Back in the day, they were made a lot better, and it definitely came out from the hinges, but I did not break it down. And so I hurt my body in this pursuit, and that was the moment that I realized, "Oh, this is not me just being angry at my brother. I have an issue with food." And so I then went and started getting some help with, to a therapist and trying to process the emotions. But ultimately, I started to realize, like, that's an issue when you starve yourself all day. Even though I'm not starving myself for weight. I was going all day and pushing myself work wise, and then binge eating. And I think that we have to start looking at when we don't regulate our needs, that is a disorder to a degree. whether it's workaholicness, whether you're doing it for weight or thinking that you're going to somehow uh, evade those calories. I don't know. But we get these mindsets. And I think sometimes we use either food in abundance or the lack thereof to feel those emotions that we're not really acknowledging in our day more.
Yeah. I mean, we see it in all different kinds of pathology, in that for some people it's about control and
Absolutely.
how much control can I exert over this. For some people, it is about weight, but it backfires on them because when you starve yourself all day and you are ravenous, it's like the sumo wrestler diet, right? They don't eat all day, but then they eat, 4,000 calories at night when your metabolism is already shut down and wants to go to bed. And so, it backfires on you.
Totally. Yeah, it's very important for everyone to I mean, it took me many years to finally acknowledge this, but it's like calories in, calories out, it matters. Like it's not even all the time. Like I'm all for real food, but sometimes it doesn't even matter what calories. It does, but sometimes people get almost so granular about that they're like, "Well, I'll just eat all these calories because it's healthy fat," versus but it's like, "Well, but if you're not burning those calories, then it's now excess."
Yeah. So I do think that what you eat matters, right? Like 100 calories of pretzels is not equal to 100 calories of broccoli. That said, if you're going to eat 4,000 calories over the course of the day, even if it's, things that we consider healthy, that's probably too much unless you're unless you're
Yeah,
an
an
athlete
athlete, exactly.
working out for 8 hours.
Totally. And I'm really even more referencing too that there is this illusion of health that so back in the day, to your point, there wasn't much awareness of health. Then we went to, oh, well, health is zero fat, so it's like grilled chicken breasts, it's steamed vegetables, it's a baked potato with nothing on it, right? So
Right.
that was health then.
Or 6 baked potatoes.
Yeah.
Remember that? Who was that woman with the blonde, spiky hair? Susie someone that said, like, she was the queen of no fat. Do you remember who I'm talking
I
about?
don't, but I remember a blonde something or other like that, but I just don't remember her name.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But that no fat thing was a killer. I mean, when we were
huge.
growing up, like, the worst thing that you could eat was an avocado,
Totally,
right?
totally.
Like, people are like, "Oh, no, that's full of fat. Don't eat that."
But now what we have is, yeah, we have a little bit more awareness, but we still have this illusion of health. Like, so what we have now is like, oh, we'll follow, and you put in whatever diet you want, whether it's keto, carnivore, paleo, whatever. We'll follow this diet. And then what's the first thing in retail that comes out that is specific about that diet? It's desserts. So then they're like, oh, well, I can have this brownie because it's keto. And
Yeah.
for the keto diet thing, it was organic. I remember early on when I was first becoming a chef and I had gone to school and I was cooking for private clients. I was in Trader Joe's, and this is early on. Trader Joe's had only just begun back then because a lot of people don't remember this. Trader Joe's used to be an international store. It used to only have imported foods. And then eventually they became what they are now. But this was still at the early stages. And I remember I was standing in line and there were these kids with their mom and they were like, Mom, can we have this chocolate? It says it's organic. That means it's healthy. So we've always had these kind of like throughout time, we've had these illusions of like what we think is healthy.
You are 100% correct. I mean, I remember back from my surgery days, there was one of the OR techs, and she was so baffled when she got breast cancer, her children were sick, um, and she was just baffled. She's like, "I don't understand. Everything we eat is organic." And she would show me these bags of like gummy bears and Swedish fish. And she's like, "But it's all organic." I was like, "It's garbage.
Yeah. And
It's
and
garbage with a really pretty bow on it."
it really is true. It's I've been a pro chef and in this field for over 20 years. And my messaging from the day after I got out of culinary school has been, I don't care what diet you think you should follow. I just want you to eat real food. And back in the day, that was very kind of like antiquated. Everyone was like, well, that's not exciting. That's not sexy. But now we're finally, now 20 years later, it's finally catching up. Now people are like, oh, yeah, we should just eat real food. But back in the day, my wife, who's a functional nutritionist, even when we met, the brand was that we were pushing was like, just eat real food. Because hands down, if you just do that, like when I first hit the scene as a private chef, I got notorious because women were losing their baby weight every time I cooked for them. So the word started spreading. I got customers or clients very quickly, and everyone's thinking I was doing something magical. But I was like, I just made everything from scratch. So if they had a dressing, I made that from scratch. If there was a sauce, if there was never anything packaged. I just made it from scratch, and their body responded. And
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons
Well,
why.
because that's what we're meant to eat.
Exactly. And
Like, when you feed yourself processed things, your body doesn't know what to do with it.
exactly. And that's why I've even doubled down now in these last 5 years, where I'm now even getting a little bit more granular, and I'm saying, well, let's really try to eat as ancestrally as possible. And what I mean by that is when I talk about my ancestral food pyramid, I'm focusing on three things, because I'm ultimately, what I've learned in my time in this business is that as humans, we need things that are easy and delicious. And if they're both, we will do them forever. But they have to be both. Can't be easy and disgusting. Can't be hard and delicious. It's got to be easy and delicious. And so when I even come up with like a food pyramid, I'm focusing on simplicity. So this is my ancestral food pyramid. The top of the pyramid is just focus on flavors that are found in nature, not natural flavors, but foods that are found in nature. Okay. Then middle of the pyramid, focus on real nutrient dense food. So that's food that is an ingredient versus food that has ingredients. And then at the bottom of the pyramid, and this is something that we really don't talk very much about in this industry, and I think it needs to take more of the main. I think it needs to be on the main stage, which is now just mindfully eat. Because here's the thing: when you bring mindfulness into eating, you now start to tap your innate knowledge of what you should be eating, because we are the only species that looks to someone else to tell us what to eat. And there's over 9 million species. So
Oh,
clearly
that's
we knew.
so interesting.
We knew
I
at one
never thought
point.
about that before.
Yeah, we knew at one point. So the question is, I'm not suggesting we should all go become cave people again. It's not about going backwards. It's about how do we tap these resources that this body, this Homo sapien body that we're in, was formed with. Because we have to remember the foods that we're talking about earlier on in this podcast, these are foods that we've only been eating for like the last 200 years. Like it
Yeah.
hasn't been that long, but the body we're in is over 100,000 years in development. So the question then becomes like, well, what were the resources this body came into being? Well, we know, like anthropologists and archaeologists will say, well, three things were eaten back in the day that enabled our brains to grow bigger, gave us more nutrients, but also did some other things. But these three things happened: is we became predators, and we were able to eat three things that we were not able to eat before we were predators, and that's blood, fat, and organs. So those three things in the animal are so nutrient dense that it gave us more nutrients than we had historically received. And so then when we had more nutrients, our brains got bigger. And then and then at the same time, we also got fire, which also opened things up. So we started to then develop language and tools. And now and now we're at the point where now we can talk on a podcast about, everything under the sun. But if you think about it, okay, now we'll skip ahead a little bit. What was it that our palate, like how did our body communicate to us what it needed? Well, if you think about it, it's through our senses and through our tastes. So we had to eat the food to get the communication. We couldn't just swallow it in a pill. We couldn't combine foods that weren't naturally designed to be combined, because that would confuse the body. So back ancestrally, flavor equaled nutrition. So if something had flavor, that meant it had, nutrients. Now, our bodies are what we call the neurolingual response was designed to really tell us two pieces of information. Is the food I'm about to eat, is this going to kill me or is it going to nourish me? That was really it. So now you skip ahead and now we're in a place where we're eating foods that say strawberry flavored. So strawberries ancestrally meant, because if you found a berry in the wild, that meant, oh, this is flavorful, it's sweet, which equals nutrition. Now we're eating these products that have the flavor of a strawberry, but have zero strawberries. So it has zero of that strawberry nutrition. So your body's now completely confused. So we have gone from, our bodies have created a communication pathway that took tens of thousands of years to develop to now 200 years of destroying that communication pathway and confusing the body, and thus now forcing ourselves to look outside of our innate knowledge. So my tip on how to get back to that is to do those three things in that pyramid I laid out. And one of them is that you got to eat your food. You can't just swallow it in capsules. You need it to be that nutrient dense real food, and you need it to be with food that has flavors found in nature.
I absolutely love that. I think that we have been so poisoned literally poisoned by the food industry, and there has been a complicit plan between all of these different food manufacturers to literally rob us of that instinct that you were talking about, right? And that is where a lot of overeating comes from.
Oh,
And I
100%.
think people don't realize that. It's like the foods are synthesized to have
Textures
a
and
taste
flavors.
and
Yeah.
texture and flavor
Ingredients.
to tell the brain, like, to stimulate the brain saying, I want more, I want more, I want more. But part of the I want more is there's no nutrition there, there's no nourishment there.
Totally.
There's no nutrient there. So even though you're eating and that part of your brain is getting stimulated, the rest of your body is like, wait, I don't have what I need. So
Yep.
I need to eat more because I don't have what I need.
And yet our bodies are craving that need. They're craving it. And so when we do get it in our diets, like I'll just use, let's say, for example, bone broth as an example. If you talk to someone, if anyone listening has ever had bone broth, what do you physically feel when you have bone broth? Well, I feel like almost like a calming in my body, like almost like someone just put a very warm blanket over me and they've given me just this absolute comfort and safety. And I think that's very fascinating because in many ways, what ancestral foods do for us is when you have a food that's real, found in nature, and you eat it, your body basically is getting told, oh, thank you. You just made me feel safe because this food is in tuned with what I desire and what this body was designed to eat. But when we give it these franken foods, you're basically telling the body to be on alert and to be anxious and to be like overstimulated because those foods are a lot of times causing inflammation. They're causing chemical disruptions inside. They're also sometimes keeping us from absorbing nutrients. So one thing basically creates chaos in the body and the other creates safety and comfort. And I really advise people to start kind of assessing when they go to choose what food they're going to allow into their diet, because that is the thing we yes, there's frankenfoods that are designed to confuse us and to manipulate our minds, but we still have choice. We still have choice, and there are tips you can do to make sure you don't even go down that path, and I'll share three of them right now. One is
Love to hear them.
one is if there is a food that is not going to produce the desired outcome you have. So notice I'm not focusing on diet. I'm focusing on what is your desired outcome. If there is a food that is not going to support that, do not bring it into your house. Make it hard to get. Because if it's in the house, we will find a reason and a way to eat it. So
Yeah.
set very clear boundaries. of what is acceptable and what desired outcome you or your family have, and only bring in food that fits that desired outcome. 2, meal planning. When you meal plan, you don't write on there, buy Oreos because they're on sale, right? You don't do that in a meal plan. What you do is you figure out what you're going to eat that week. You build it around your work schedule, not your idea of what you want to eat. So, like, let's say if you have a all day and you're working all day and you're like, gosh, I'm only going to have 20 minutes to eat or to make dinner and eat. Well, then that's a slow cooker day. That's one of those days, or a pressure cooker. You throw everything in the morning, set it the timer, and then walk away. So it's ready for you when you're done. So you build the meal plan around your schedule, not the meal plan around your appetite. And then that meal plan, not only does that help control what ingredients you bring in, but now it's set for your week, for the busyness or lack of busyness to your week. You're being mindful about what did we choose to eat this week based on our schedule. And then the third thing I would say is really try your best to just bring in that mindfulness, because I'm not here to say never have ice cream or never do this. I'm just saying let's set boundaries around it. Let's make it hard to get. But then when you do have it, just promise me you'll sit, you'll breathe, you'll really like be mindful as you eat it, and you not try to,
Savor it.
yeah, savor it,
Savor it.
be mindful, like don't beat yourself up about it, like choose it. Really choose it and
Yeah.
enjoy it. But also notice, how does my body feel after it? Because eventually what's going to happen is if you mindfully eat, you're eventually going to go, you know what? I felt like crap after I ate X. And you're going to do it enough where you're going to have one day, maybe in your 50s, you're going to go like, you know what? I'm done feeling like crap. I'm just done. And you're gonna
Yeah.
realize, I've already eaten every cookie there ever could be. Like, no one can now convince me that there is a cookie that's gonna be amazing, because I've already had amazing cookies. I know now that when I eat that cookie, I don't feel good. So the feeling of how you feel is gonna start to become your why. Of like,
Yeah.
I don't do these things because I want to live long, or I want to be there for my kids, or I want to grow old and see them have their kids, or I just want to stop feeling like crap, right? But we have to
Yeah.
find our why, and the only way to find your why is to, yes, to have contrast, but also to be mindful about it and see how it feels in your body when you do it.
Yeah. I mean, it's actually why I stopped drinking.
A lot of people stop drinking for that reason.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not that I certainly enjoyed it. And, I drank for probably 20 years of my adult life, maybe even 30. But I stopped because I just didn't like how I felt the next day. And I needed to stop. I knew I needed to stop, and I wasn't even drinking that much. I mean, I was drinking maybe 1 or 2 cocktails a week on the weekend if we would go out to dinner. So it wasn't a daily thing for me, and it wasn't an excess thing for me. Um, but when I put people on hormone replacement, I tell them that they're not allowed to drink because your liver can't do both things.
Interesting, right?
But so when I started hormone replacement, I was really at a crossroads with myself because what's good for the goose is good for the gander, right?
Right.
So, but I actually dialed into that exact place that you're talking about and said, like, what am I even doing it for anyway? Like,
Yeah.
yes, the first 5 minutes of a social situation are a little awkward if you don't have a cocktail in your hand, but who cares? And you feel like shit the next day.
Yep. Did you have like an aura ring or anything that was kind of confirming how you felt the next day?
As this call started off today, you see that I struggle with technology. So I've had 3 Aura rings that never consistently communicate with my phone. So there's that. I just I struggle with wearables
Yeah,
and
tech
all of
stuff.
that kind of thing. So I couldn't let the tech dictate it for me, unfortunately, because my tech just doesn't seem to work that well. I have a new I have a new tech device that I'm wearing right now. Hopefully this will be kinder to me in my relationship with technology, but I'm wearing the NeuroCalm right now.
I do offer though that that is one thing that, you know, modern times has provided is we have these ways of measuring these things that we didn't have back in the day.
Yeah.
And having
You can have evidence
yeah,
of
and I
how
think
much
sometimes it
your
helps
body
people.
doesn't like it.
It helps people so it's not so subjective. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
you see that you're lower with your aura ring when you drink, and it could even be just half a glass or even a glass. It you
Yeah.
don't have to
It
get
doesn't
drunk.
have to be much.
No. And
It's
so I
not
think
much
having
that will
these
throw you
markers
off.
really does help a lot, whether it's you know, aura rings or just you know, apps that are kind of tracking your sleep or anything that can just like even CGMs, you know,
Yeah.
glucose monitors are
Another thing I can't seem to get to work.
well,
But
they
I agree. I think that they are amazing, and, I think that they provide an incredible amount of meaningful information.
exactly. And it's not something you have to do forever. I'm just suggesting like even just doing a CGM for, you know, a month, 2 weeks on to, and then the, you know, 4 weeks
I
total.
think yeah, I think everyone should wear one for
Yeah.
2 months.
I
I
learned a
think
lot.
even healthy people, they you
Totally.
learn a lot.
You learn a lot. You learn, like, first of all, you learn, like, that sometimes you are eating even though your body doesn't need the food. And then you're also learning how each food affects you.
Mhm.
And of course, there's, you know, gray areas and there's things that are not like, because you might think, "Oh, this food affected me," but then you also went for a walk afterwards. Well, that's gonna always affect your glucose as well as just exercise, for example. So
Yeah.
you do have to be mindful of things. I wouldn't just go get one just based on this call, unless you have someone kind of advising you or supporting you with it. But there's lots of services that will do that. But it's just so helpful to have these kind of markers. And then once you see you have proof, like, then now you can make an informed decision, and you're just like, "Okay,
Yeah.
I'm done."
Yeah. And a CGM is about more than just food and what you eat because it also tells you like is that exercise working for you or
Absolutely.
not and what's happening when you sleep and so I think it's invaluable information. So I want to get a little bit of like gossipy dirt and then I want to move on to what you're doing with your life now. But you were a celebrity chef for years. Um, any unusual requests, stories that you would like to share? Because I always like to hear this. I don't have time to read the rags, so I want to hear
Well, I'll
some
say
insider stuff.
I will say this, I did have to sign some NDAs, and while they're probably no longer in effect, I still just honor, you know, anyone I worked with, I still honor their privacy, but this doesn't reveal anything about the person, but it reveals a little bit about the culture. So Tom Cruise is one of the people I used to cook for, and I was cooking for him when he was in the movie Valkyrie. I cooked for him for about 2 years, but I was over in Germany when he was in Valkyrie, and I we were there about 4 months, and it was really fascinating because as I worked with him, I would see all the tabloids would be always throwing things out saying this or that. And I'll tell you right now, in my 2 years of working with him, 99% of what they said in the tabloids was not correct at all. And then there would
Wow.
be that one issue where it came out and you're like, "Oh, someone talked." Like, it would be, you know what I mean? Like, but I'm telling you, literally, like, let's say 100 issues, 99 of them completely false, and then maybe there'd be one, maybe. At the time, though, I remember there was this one came out that talked about life with his daughter, and it was very clear someone from the inner circle talked. I don't know who, but it was like, oh, they knew details that were privy to those of us that were in the
Yeah.
household.
Yeah.
But every other issue, complete lies, like not true at all. And of course, I don't know what it's like now, but it was just fascinating to be working around someone that had to be so aware of the public. You know, like a lot of these celebrities, they have dressers that keep track of like what outfit they wore on what day, because if they're seen in that outfit and there's a snapshot taken, they want to make sure that they now never use that outfit again, because if there's another snapshot, it will look like they wore the outfit, the next day, even though they could have
Even
been.
the men?
Oh, men and women. Yep.
Wow.
If they're high, like A-listers, yeah, they're very aware. They are their brand, right? And they are meticulous about how their brand is perceived and how it's covered. It's
I
very.
need that. I feel like I'm wearing the same pink dress in every picture.
You would never make it as an A-list. No, I'm kidding.
I know.
You're an A-lister in my
I'm gonna
mind.
get there one
You're
day.
an A-lister.
Are you ready for a breast cancer screening revolution? Well, I'm thrilled to introduce to you a breast cancer screening tool that I have only recently learned about, but I have universally adopted. This is the ARIA test. This groundbreaking at-home breast cancer screening test is one that I believe will completely change the game. So imagine a screening test that's as simple as shedding a tear, because that's ARIA. It's a non-invasive, convenient, and perfect for all bodies and all breasts. Dense breast implants, no problem. ARIA makes it clear for everyone, even women as young as 30. ARIA is backed by over a decade of clinical trials, thousands of samples, and it's developed alongside top breast health experts. Here's how it works. You collect a tear sample at home, and then ARIA then analyzes it for protein biomarkers that can signal early breast cancer. And the best part, you get a consultation with a breast health specialist to review your results. Now, ARIA isn't replacing breast imaging. I am using it alongside QT. It's complementing it and giving you a fuller picture of your breast health. Knowledge is power, and ARIA is putting that power back in your hands. It's time to take control of your breast health, and ARIA is another way of doing it. Go to aria.care, AURIA.care, and use my code DrJen20 in capitals, DRJENN 20 to get 20% off. Back to our show. Hello, my beautiful listeners. I'm taking a quick break here to share something truly transformative with you today. If you're ready to take control of your breast health journey, then you need to get your hands on a copy of my book, The Smart Woman's Guide to Breast Cancer. I wrote this book to make a massive impact in the world of breast cancer, empowering women everywhere to make informed choices and educated decisions. You have so much more power and control over your health than you might think. And this book, this is a roadmap to harnessing that power. Inside, you'll uncover the truth about conventional treatments. They're often overestimated benefits and underestimated, underexplained, and underdisclosed long-term side effects. But more importantly, you'll discover the true drivers of health and how the choices you make at home every day can lead you to the best health, the breast health of your life, even after a breast cancer diagnosis. Whether you're looking to prevent a diagnosis, avoid recurrence, or simply live your healthiest life, this book is for you. Join me on this journey to empowerment and health. Grab your copy of The Smart Woman's Guide to Breast Cancer today, and let's revolutionize the way that we approach breast health together.
Yeah,
But my closet does look like Barbie.
and then I did have I won't say who, but I did. A lot of times
Wait,
I was.
before you move off of Tom
Oh
Cruise,
yeah, yeah.
I have to say, I picture him as like the quintessential professional who is like working out and eating so clean because he like sees that as his job. Did I get that right?
Yeah, no, I think that's very true with any of those really top echelon actors. I He's still human though. I mean, he definitely would have days where he would go out and indulge. I mean, just like anyone, you know. I mean, he and I really liked him. I really liked him. I didn't have huge amounts of time with him, but we definitely in 2 years, I would we would have conversations, little conversations here and there. But with all the different people I've worked with, there's just sometimes as a chef, whenever I would work with a client, one of the first things I would try to do is really kind of get to understand what motivates them food wise. And so a lot of the questions I would initially ask are like, when you're having a hard day, what kind of foods do you gravitate towards? So, because I want to know, what are the textures, what are the flavors that really like tap that kind of inner child for you, and that make you feel safe. And then I would try to, once I identified those, I would try to build the healthy food around those textures and flavors. So then that way the clients would not feel deprived, or they would feel comforted by these new foods. And I felt in a weird way, I felt so connected to him. Like I felt like I understood him on such a deep level food wise. I don't know why. I never felt it with any other customer or any other client that I worked with,
Client.
but I felt very intimately like I got him. I just felt like I really got him. And he could have he may not feel that, but I felt that way. And
Yeah.
and so I really enjoyed working for him due to that. Not that it was easy, it was very hard. Because he's a busy guy, and there's a
Mhm.
lot of moving pieces, and you have to be really on top of the job to maintain the job. And I'm happy to say that, I was the one that chose to leave. They did offer me to stay longer, but I was just ready. My focus at the time, while I really loved working with him and it's a big stroke to the ego, it kind of goes back to even that 9/11 experience, like where while I was working for him, I kept feeling like I wasn't doing what I was here to do, which was to help many people, not just
Yeah, it
one.
wasn't a big enough mission.
Yeah. It really
Yeah.
wasn't, it
Yeah.
and it's kinda my curse. I gotta say it's a little bit of a curse because, I've had some really good paying, really solid jobs. I mean, had I just stayed with him, I probably would've, it would've been a very safe and secure job to a degree, but yet I chose the harder path of, like, I'm gonna leave and I'm gonna start this meal delivery service so that I can cook this way, but for as many people as I can.
Yeah.
And, then that was its own really hard, challenging place to be.
Yeah.
But it really is at this point in my life, it is about like, am I on mission? Like, am I doing what I'm here to do?
Um, what's the strangest request you got?
Well, it's funny. I mean, a lot of the people, because I would bring to the table, like, I had some nutritional background, at the school I went to, I studied some nutrition, and then I took a nutritional course afterwards, but I was very kind of clear, like, this is the type of chef I am. I wasn't trying to be different than what I was. I wasn't like, "Oh, I'll cook you foie gras," and it's like, I didn't know how to cook foie gras. I'm like, I cook this real food base, but very healthy, but clean and flavorful way, and so a lot of times when I would come in, I I would they would defer to me. So a lot of times they weren't actually asking me to do much except just do what I do. What I had more so than requests, it was more about circumstances. I had one time I was delivering to a client and he had just been to the rainforest and I think he had done some plant medicine. I don't know, but he'd done some shamanic work and he was informed during this shamanic work that he was a shaman. And so I went to deliver the food and I walked in and he basically he grabbed the assistant and he said, sit on the couch because the shaman had come back with him. He's like, we're gonna bless you guys. And I was like, huh?
All
I'm like,
right.
I'm just delivering your food. He's like, are you open to it? And I was like, yeah, yeah, let's do it. So all of a sudden the food delivery became like me getting blessed by a shaman and this actor. And so it's just I would just have these really funny, fun stories and funny
I love it.
circumstances. Yeah, it was really fun. It's a definite stroke to the ego, when you work for someone like Tom Cruise, everyone just assumes you must be amazing. So I didn't ever have to prove myself to anyone. So that was kind of
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Um, but why do you think it's so hard for people to eat healthy and to embrace that.
I mean,
Why do you think people perceive it as so hard?
I think if I had the true answer to that question, I would, have solved life's biggest riddle. I think human nature is hard to figure out. I think that the minute we think we understand human nature is the minute someone, veers and does something that's out of the ordinary. I do think though that what is going on is a disconnection. And so I'll use an example of, let's say, someone who's plant-based. So, and it could be any diet. I'm just picking plant-based. You choose the diet, and we believe that this is the diet that's right for us. We think this is, whatever influence we had to come to this conclusion, but we believe very firmly this is the diet. And then we start to follow that path. Well, within that relationship of, what we think and what in our body, there is one person in that relationship that will never lie to us, that will never steer us the wrong direction, and that is always communicating to us purely. And this is where I think the disconnect is coming from, is that person in our lives is our body. So no matter what our head tells us of what diet we should follow, you can follow any diet and your body will reveal to you whether that diet is working or not. You'll either, if it's not working, you'll get, you'll get, you could get fat, you could have inflammation, you could have skin issues, you could have foggy brain, you could have
Yeah.
hair falling. I mean, you name the chronic disease or illness or daily issue, and that's your body revealing to you, hey, what you did last night or what you're doing on an ongoing basis is not working.
Yeah.
But the disconnect is we're not listening. So we have literally the purest crystal ball that will reveal all the truth we need, and we're not listening. We're still going back to, but I'm plant-based and I don't want to hurt an animal. It's like, well, here's the thing. Let's dig even deeper into that. So, do you know the story about the lemmings? Like, what do you
No,
know about lemmings?
I don't know anything.
Okay, have you ever heard like someone who's a lemming? Because basically there was this documentary where these animals called lemmings, where if one of them, they were all kind of following each other. So when you're a lemming, it's like you're following someone without thinking for yourself. Because basically what happened is they followed the one in front of them, and they all just went off a cliff.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So when
That's
we
terrible.
call someone a lemming, it's like you're not thinking for yourself. You're just being a follower, right?
Yeah.
Well, what's so interesting is that usually a lot of people know that they know about what a lemming is because it's something that's been ingrained in not only our lexicon, but like some of us even have seen the documentaries where we saw the lemmings going off the cliff. Well, that is actually a false narrative because lemmings actually don't do that. What happened was the documentary, I think it was by Disney, that showcased lemmings going off a cliff is they took the lemmings out of their natural habitat and put them in a habitat they weren't familiar with. And that's why they went off the cliff. So this whole idea of like, oh, lemmings equals you're being a follower, that's now part of our lexicon, is completely inaccurate. So then you take that idea of like, well, what else is inaccurate in our lives? What else do we think we understand that we don't? So let's just touch base about plant-based. Well, so an argument a lot of times for plant-based is people think, well, I don't want to cause any harm to animals. So that's why I'm eating the vegetables. Well, I talk to the farmers. I talk to both ranchers who slaughtering animals, and I talk to the ones that just plow fields. And the face on the ones that plow fields are horrendous when you ask them, does anything die when you plow this soy field or this corn field? Does any, like, are you actually killing anything? And their faces look like they just watched the scariest, movie in the world. And they're like, yeah, there's doe hiding in these fields. There's rabbits, there's ground mice, there's all these insects, there's all these things, these organisms
Pictures.
that just get slaughtered and their blades get covered in blood as they're plowing these fields. And so I'm like, oh, well, most people don't know that. They think that nothing's getting killed. So that's why they're holding this belief. But the reality is that for us to live and for any organism to live, something has to die. but yet we're living that, we're creating this truth in our head, like, oh no, but this diet is healthier, or this diet means nothing that, gets killed, or whatever excuse we make, or we should all be eating carnivore, whatever it is. But we're creating this illusion that justifies our habit. And that is ultimately what I think we're doing, is we're picking something that works for us, and then we're finding the reasons to justify it so that it makes sense towards those that we communicate or perceive us, and why we do the things we do. But I think
Isn't
ultimately
that
it's
true of everything?
what?
Don't we walk through life justifying the habit?
Right. It's all about perception. And so it's
Yeah.
really ego based, I think, a lot of times. And I think that's also why we don't truly listen to our body, because if we did, we'd have to be honest with ourselves and be like, oh, this thing isn't working. And the reality is you don't really know what would work, because we're confused. So, then it's about, now I have to ask for help. And a lot of people struggle with that. A lot of people have issues actually asking for help.
Yeah.
One of the best things we could do.
But I do think that, this culture of convenience was very much created,
Oh, yeah.
right? And there is messaging around the fact that your time is more important spent somewhere else, and you shouldn't be spending it shopping and preparing food and in the kitchen. And this is especially important messaging and listen, I'm not about traditional gender roles. Like, I don't care. I do think that someone needs to be in the kitchen, because I think it's nearly impossible to be healthy unless you are shopping for your own food, cooking your own food. Like, I just don't. Do you eat out?
Less and less, to be honest with you, but you're dead on. Like, there is no way. I will be even firmer with it. There is absolutely no way you can be healthy eating out. And here's why. Everything outside of your kitchen is a business. And those businesses have bottom
Yes.
lines. They have desires to make money and to survive, just like you do. And so they will cut corners that you will probably not cut in your own kitchen if you know better. So,
Definitely not cut
right.
in your own kitchen.
Yeah, we don't
Right.
want you to, but some people sometimes don't know better than to, they're just using those canola oils, or those soy oils or cottonseed oils. Like, they're just using them, not knowing that those actually aren't very good for you. So, you just have to know that, whether it's something you're buying at the grocery store that's prepackaged, anything at the restaurant, they have bottom lines. They are cutting corners, guaranteed. And the restaurants that are not, most of us, probably like 99.9% of us, probably couldn't afford to eat there every single meal. There's that 0.1% that could, but I guarantee they're not even doing that, because it's just it's an impossible mission to think that you're going to afford a place that could cook like that 24/7, and want to do that, because we're also, while we are creatures of habit, we also do like variety. And so, I think that the only way to truly get control of your health is you gotta cook in your own kitchen.
Yeah.
And let's just touch base. Well, why wouldn't you cook in your own kitchen? I get it. Like, we put this pressure on ourselves to think like, well, because I eat, I have to love to cook. It's like, no. Just like I don't love to clean my house doesn't mean I should become, a house cleaner. It's like, you don't need to do, like, we live in a beautiful society here in America where you don't have to do the things you don't want to do, particularly the things that you can afford to pay someone else to do. And
Yeah.
and so we don't need to put pressure on ourselves to do these things. We just need to be aligned with, well, how can I make it more enjoyable? So let's just say you are someone who can't afford a private chef, who wants to cook from home. I would focus on, how do I make this activity more enjoyable? Well, first of all, I would play play a podcast or music that you really love, that inspires you, that makes you move your body, that just makes you
Mhm.
feel happy. I would make sure that you're putting food in your kitchen that inspires you, that's easy, like that you're not trying to do complicated recipes, that you're just, instead of even focusing on recipes, you're just focusing on formulas. Like, okay, this food needs a protein, it needs a fat, and it needs if you eat this way, a vegetable, right? And it's like, and just pick them accordingly. Like if it's Asian, I would pick bok choy, I'd pick coconut oil, and I'd pick chicken. If it's French, maybe it's seafood, and it's ghee or butter, and then it's like broccoli, or what I mean, like just pick them accordingly, but you don't have to worry about following a recipe.
Haricot vert.
Yeah, right. You just follow the formula. And then lastly, choose good people to share it with, because we forget about the people we eat with, but it's everything. We are ancestrally, we are community-based organisms, okay? When we isolate ourselves, that's the least human thing you could do, is isolate yourself. Think about it ancestrally. If you were isolated, you died. The cultures that survived were the ones that were in community. So we are designed to flourish in community. So surround yourself with people that make you happy. And if they don't make you happy, choose different people.
Beautiful. Tell me about your mission.
Well, my mission is now to really help people get whole animal into their diet. That's become my very clear mission, because, and it goes back to, well, my ultimate mission is to help people be healthy. And I believe that getting the whole animal in our diet is healthier than the way we're currently eating, which is mostly just muscle meat and or the vegetables, and then the carbohydrate, the potatoes or the starches, those kind of things. I believe that we can get much more of our nutrients from by eating the whole animal, and they will be not only more fulfilling, but they will ultimately curb those chronic illnesses we were talking about earlier. Because ultimately, it's close to 94-95% of Americans are nutrient deficient, but we're not calorie deficient.
Which is a frightening statistic.
Yeah, it's
Well, but that's a huge disconnect, right? So, because we're not calorie deficient, we have been trained to think that if we've eaten enough, we're nourished.
Yep. And it's just not true.
Right?
You really have to look at that. That is an issue of, it's not how much we're eating, it's the foods we're choosing to eat. So we have to make different choices. And so my mission is to help you with that choice. And so I believe, as I mentioned earlier, the blood, the organs, and the fat were three things that help to form this body. I believe that the organ meats of the animal are things that we're not eating, or the whole animal, because eventually we're going to even have whole sardine come out, So like, I'm not just about beef. I'm about, how do I get us to eat those nutrient parts of the animal? But I get it. I'm going back to a lot of things I already said, is like, I get it. We're human and we need things that are easy and delicious. So what I conceived, and it's the first of its kind, was a seasoning blend made with grass-fed and grass-finished beef organ meats. So you're getting the nutrition from the organ meats, but none of that organ flavor. I've made it taste good. I've made it as easy to apply as seasoning your food. And I've removed the hindrances. Like, you don't have to touch, textures that you don't, gravitate towards. You don't have to stomach flavors that don't appeal to you, and you don't have to know how to cook them. You just season your food. You could put it on popcorn. You could put it on pizza. Like, I'm basically saying, like, look, I'm not telling you to change your diet. Eat your diet, but sprinkle this on instead of Lowry's or whatever, Old Bay or whatever it is you're using, and now you've increased your micronutrients incredibly. And if you use it every time, so we call it microdosing plus frequent use, cumulative effect. So as long as you're doing it each meal daily, it's a cumulative effect, and you do see results. We have had amazing testimonies of people's lives being changed, particularly kids, because they can't take supplements and capsules. They can't do all that stuff. And it's really hard to get these foods into them. But pluck is what it is. It's called pluck. And kids will eat it and they love it. And in fact, we get reports that when kids start to eat it, they get that visceral response that I talked about with bone broth, where you like feel like you're being, comforted and safe. Well, they feel that way. And then when they run out of the pluck, they have tantrums. So it's not just that it's good. It's like, no, their body is saying, I want this and I need this. give me more. And so I'm really at this point just trying to support people and getting these whole species into their diet. Like I mentioned, we're going to eventually have poultry lines. We're going to have a whole sardine line. We're going to have bison. Like I have this idea that we'll just have this line of seasonings that are all supporting all these other species, but getting them in your diet really easily and deliciously. And I hope that, it will not only help to solve this nutrient deficiency issue, but will start to get people feeling better in their body. And I really believe that once we feel better in our body, we start treating people differently because we treat people how we feel. So if you feel good, you treat people well. And now we have a whole different society. And I truly believe getting these ancestral foods in your diet can make the world a better place to live.
Yeah. I'm surprised that just the seasoning is enough to get clinical benefit, but you're saying that it doesn't take much.
Think about the things in your life. You've been on this journey for a while. Think about the things that have actually moved the mark for you. That could be health wise, that could be relationship wise. It's not the thing, it's not the one, like let's just throw anything out. Like, so okay, let's just pick a relationship. That one trip you went to Bermuda or whatever, and you had a whirlwind weekend with your husband or your lover or whoever it is, and now everything's gonna be fantastic for the rest of my life. It's like, no, that was a
No.
weekend. And you might
Yeah.
have had a few days or even a week of joy, and then you're right back to the realities. Or let's pick a health food. Like maybe you did have one day where, oh, I ate liver and onions and I did it. I did it. It was so good. Great. How often have you done that? No, I did it once, and I did it once in 1989, and it was fantastic. I felt so good for a week. Right. And
Yeah.
so it's like we live this reality where we think it's the choice we're making. But I say it's actually how often we make that choice. So I'm looking for what is the thing that will allow you to make that choice daily. And I believe, due to human nature, it's got to be a small amount. If we had to brush our teeth 2 hours a day instead of 2 minutes a day, we
Yeah, it
would
would
have
never
some
happen.
funky teeth out there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Human nature needs things in small amounts. When we get them in too big of amounts, we do not sustain it. We burn out. So I'm all about little things done daily, cumulative effect. And it
Yeah.
works. It
Yeah.
absolutely works.
Yeah. Um, any tips that you want to leave people with, like what are the big pitfalls in the kitchen?
Oh, well, I think the biggest I mentioned, but it's worth re-mentioning is the stress we put on ourselves. We're all so hard on ourselves. We beat ourselves up for not eating this or eating that, or not knowing how to do this and outsourcing that. And it's like, one of the best things we could do is start to stop putting so much stress on ourselves and start creating an environment that is less stressful. We don't talk about this very often, but I used to kind of tell this to people. I would be getting the best food in the world, highest quality, most expensive, which are not always the same thing, but still, like I could make you the most amazing meal. But if your body's not digesting it properly or assimilating those vitamins and nutrients, it will be a waste. And we forget that when we're in a stress state, we don't digest things well. We don't assimilate them well. So I always say that there's two things that really have to go hand in hand with health, and that's getting good sleep and lowering the stress in your life. And how you do that is up to you, but I think they're really integral because I know, like, for example, when I don't sleep enough, I make poor choices. Like I just immediately default to crappy food because I can't make the right choice. And then I
Yeah.
also know when I'm stressed out, my digestion gets all messed up. So I think right away, those are two things everyone can start putting into habit. And then, here's another one that is a surprising mover, but I'll tell you a story. So there used to be this, I think he was 17 at the time. There was a 17-year-old I met in this men's group called the Mankind Project, which is a nonprofit. I highly recommend anyone look at, but it's a nonprofit to help men become better men. And he was a 17-year-old, and he was considered ADHD. He smoked, and he had horrible acne, and just couldn't sit still. And he had never held down a job, and he was still living with his parents, and we became friends. And then I brought him into the meal delivery service that I had. So he started washing dishes, and I didn't push anything on him. And at one point, he's watching us cook our food, and he was motivated to say, "Hey, James, how do I get healthier? Like, do you think me eating differently would help, this other stuff?" And I said, "Absolutely." He said, "Well, what should I do first?" I said, "Well, I noticed you drink Coca-Cola a lot. Like, I kind of know." I'm like, "Do you ever have water with you?" And he's like, "No." I said, "Okay, let's start there." I said, "For every Coke you have, I want you to have at least 2 glasses of water. Or alternatively, I just want you to drink water. Just cut everything else out. Just drink water." Well, that one tip, skip ahead now, 15 years or something like that, maybe 10. He now is fit. He goes to a gym regularly. He's now in a loving relationship. He's had multiple jobs since then, and he actually now cares about his body. He doesn't smoke. He stopped smoking after a year of doing that. Actually, I think it was less than that, a few months. But my point is that one change of just drinking more water and less of the other stuff completely put him on the path of wanting to get healthier and
Yeah.
healthier and healthier, to the point where he is now. And he has muscles. Like, he looks like a healthy guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. Um, and I can't have like a a real chef on without getting some tips of what are the things that you think help to make food delicious that people can start to incorporate in their everyday cooking to be able to start to value real food, because that's ultimately what we need to do. And I do think that when you eliminate the processed food from your diet and start to eat real food, that pull towards those fake things and fake flavors, it goes away. And I mean, to me, I think they're disgusting. But what are the things that you think make food taste so delicious?
Oh,
Real food.
I love this question. Okay. Here's a couple little tips. One is, this is just a side tip before I go into your specific question, is if you want people to think you're an amazing chef. So let's just say you're having people come over to your
Ooh,
house,
ooh, I'm
you're
gonna
having a
take this
dinner
tip.
party, and you want every time someone to walk through that door, you want them to say, "Oh, that smells good." You just have to do one thing. You have to saute onions on the stovetop. That's all you got to do. Saute some onions, keep them low, let that smell of those caramelized onions start to permeate the whole house, and I guarantee as people walk through the door, they'll be like, "What are you cooking? That smells delicious." You can do it with a little garlic as well, like, so onions and garlic, they're aromatics, and they just really do light up the whole room. So that's one little thing. But basically what you wanna do when you're thinking about food, there's a couple of things. I look at food as music, and so I think of, like, there's high tones, there's low tones, and a high tone is something acidic. So, usually what's happening is that most food is kind of bland. It's kind of staying in that mid-range, or it's even low range, because they've added, like, let's say, things like creams or butters, which are very low range. Like, think of heavier foods, it's kind of like ground, deeper voice kinda thing, right? So, what happens is that they're missing the high note, and so if you just simply put, like, lemon zest or even a little bit of lemon juice in most of your dressings or sauces or sprinkled on your food, you will brighten them, and you will actually bring out flavor. So what you want to think about is, like, so in our palate, we have salty, sweet, bitter, sour. They're all unique flavors, and the fifth is umami. So pluck is very high in umami. The organ meats are naturally umami. So we get the same effect with pluck. When you sprinkle pluck on your food, it brightens the food. It makes it all taste better. We get that compliment all the time. Like, all I did differently this time was I used pluck, and that night my family wanted seconds. They kept complimenting me on the food, and I'm like, that's the umami. It's a unique flavor.
Mhm.
When you're cooking a food that's lacking one of those five flavors, just increase one of them to brighten the food and have the other flavors start to pop. And whether that's umami or a little like sour from the lemon juice, that works really well. And then I would probably offer there's one other thing that I didn't discuss yet in this podcast, which I really do think a lot of people don't put a lot of value on, but it really does make a difference, is presentation. A lot of people, just because they think, "Oh, I'm not a cook, I'm not a chef," they just plop the food on the plate or whatever, or the bowl, whatever it is, and they also don't think about color, and it's just this kind of brown mush or whatever. A lot of times, if it's overcooked meat, it's just brown, right? But when you start looking, when you do eat out, start looking how they present the food to you, and you'll notice there's little accents. There might be a little green here, there might be a little red there might be a little um, like zest of something that's kind of creating height, like whether it's onions or shallots or something that's creating height.
Mhm.
But those little things, like the color pops or creating height, really do make the food more appealing, and it makes you crave it more. It makes you want to eat it more. We have to remember, just like we are attracted to people, like, so we use our eyes to find our mate, right? We do the same with food. So our
Mhm.
senses, smell, taste, even auditory with food, like when something cracks or pop, or let's say you're at a shellfish or what is it, like a fish bake, and you see people, like you hear them cracking that lobster, that crab. There's
A clam bake,
yeah,
yeah.
clam bake. Thank you. Like there's something about it that's just like ooh, ooh, and it's.
Don't you live in New
I
England?
do.
How
I know.
why do I have to tell you this?
I only moved here like a year and a half ago. I'm a California kid, you know,
Yeah,
so we didn't
I
do
hear
clam bakes over there at all. But yeah, but so the point is like sounds, visuals, they really do help. And so even adding little things like a little bit of chopped parsley on food, like the bright green makes it pop. A little bit of of a pepper, whether it's sweet or hot. The red also makes things pop. So just don't
Mhm.
discredit that, and really think of height. Like really explore, how do I make something tall and high versus just flat and low? And you'll see those little tips will make huge difference no matter what skilled level of chef you are.
Yeah, I love that. What are some of your kitchen staples?
Definitely a blender. I was just thinking about this today. A blender is one think is a necessity, and then I would say like a food processor. The brand I use is like Cuisinart. I think those are all that's another one. And then after that is simply a chef's knife, a very sharp chef's knife. The sharper the knife, the better, because a dull knife is not only dangerous, but it you don't get a very good cut of anything. Like sharp knives are actually safer. And then I would say like pots, like good pots, pans, but that's really it. I'm not a big gadget guy. I think that most people um, have way too many gadgets in their kitchen, and if anything, it's overwhelming. I would rather have less stuff on my countertop. And so this goes back to that environment. Like create the environment that inspires you. If you're someone who gets more inspired by basically seeing hardly anything in the kitchen, like the counters are clear, then you should not have a lot of gadgets, or either that or a big house to hide them all. But like you basically want to create a very clean and kind of sparse kitchen so that it inspires you. Maybe you have some hanging herbs or something like that, maybe some fresh fruit like the lemons or the limes out there on the table. But whatever it is, you're picking things not only for the what you use, so the functionality, but you're also picking them for aesthetics. And you don't want to underestimate that, because having a clean kitchen really does inspire cooking.
Yeah, I agree. What are some of the staple ingredients that you always have in your kitchen? Like what are the things that your kitchen can't live and function without?
Such good question. So, cultured vegetables is one for us. I am a big fan.
Say again? Cultured vegetables?
Cultured vegetables, or like sauerkraut.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
but
Wow.
real sauerkraut. So not like vinegared, but like, um, where it's fermented vegetables. Because one of the things is like there's a lot of talk right now of like how certain vegetables are causing harm, oxalates and whatnot. And I do believe that it can be true, but there is a way to kind of neutralize these things and to actually enhance them, and that's through fermentation. So I'm a big fan of, if you're going to have vegetables, like cultured vegetables, it doesn't go bad. You can keep it in your refrigerator forever, for as long as you need.
Hmm.
And you'll just always have a vegetable at hand that's going to support digestion. Like, for example, if you're having, like, I don't know when this comes out, but if it comes out before July, that's big barbecue time. Well, what's happening when people barbecue? Well, they're really actually burning the outside of the meat. That's when it gets black, that's carcinogenic, and that's not very good for
Yeah,
us. It might taste delicious, but it's not good for us. Well, one
it's
of the
bad.
ways you can help to offset the carcinogenic effects is to eat cultured vegetables. So make sure you're eating some sauerkraut with that burnt brisket or whatever it is. Um, and that would be my advice for there. And then I would say the other things are, I do love to have some fresh herbs. There's a sauce that I really love called chimichurri, which is basically you take parsley, you take even a little bit of oregano, but you take a little bit of olive oil, and you can do lemon zest or lemon juice, and then a little vinegar, white vinegar, and you just blend it all with some salt and pepper. You can even add some shallots or green onions, but it's basically an herb sauce. It's a Latin American herb sauce, and it's one of my favorite sauces. And so I love having that parsley in hand to be able to make it.
Hmm.
But also, I use the parsley to accentuate the food as well. And then I would say, like, there's a couple of other things. Like, I don't have a lot in my pantry that I use, because I don't use a lot of grains. I don't use a lot of beans. My kids do eat some of that stuff, but I don't personally. So I'm just thinking of things I would personally have. I do like to have some kind of fresh fruit around. I particularly when the weather starts to get hot like this. So I try to buy stuff that's locally in season. Um, I try to also buy it organic, because then at least there's no glyphosate on it, or they're not supposed to be putting glyphosate. So it's, once again, that perceived health. You can only do what you can
Yeah,
do. Um, but then I like to have lemons in the refrigerator, because then I can
yeah.
use them to accentuate the taste. And I would say a really good olive oil, a good coconut oil, and I like ghee. I cook with ghee a lot. I think ghee is clarified butter. It's been around for over 5,000 years. It's extremely therapeutic, and it has a great smoke point because there's no dairy fat in it. Or sorry, no dairy. It's just the butter fat.
Yeah.
And so I'm a big fan of ghee, and then I have good butter as well. But I would honestly, that's kind of it. Like, I do use tamari sometimes. I use coconut aminos. Um, but I keep it pretty simple, and then I pick some vinegars that I like, so balsamic vinegar. Now, balsamic vinegar and most of these vinegars, you do have to be careful. You gotta read the labels, and that's true with even your seasonings. They hide things. There's things in foods that you wouldn't think. Like, you would, if you were buying balsamic vinegar, you'd be like, "Oh, this is not gonna have any additional sugar," but a lot of them do. A lot of
Yeah,
them, they
a
actually
lot of
have
them do,
they're j
especially if it says, like, glaze or something like that, you just have to read the
you have
label
to.
because
You have to.
good aged balsamic vinegar needs nothing.
Nothing. It's once again, it's aged. It's just fermented
Yeah,
basically, or just allowed to reduce, and yeah, it's so good. Um, and that's what I mean. It's like, I look for I only buy olive oil in glass, for example, and I always make sure it's a dark glass, because light is extremely it affects olive oil in a negative
yeah,
way.
it oxidizes
Yeah,
it.
so you want dark
Yep,
glass. And I try to find most of these things in glass versus plastic, because I don't want the plastic to leach. I mean, microplastics, I know it's a popular thing to focus on right now, but there's truth to it. Like, there is plastic in everything right now, and we have to, like, limit it as much as possible, because
yeah.
we got it. Like, there's something like a credit card's worth of plastic in all of us right now, something like that.
No, a week.
Oh, a week. Is it a week? Yeah, I was
A
hearing that.
week. Um, and I think the new data coming out looking at, cardiac plaque that contains microplastics, like, this is frightening.
Yeah.
And, it is the number one threat to everyone's life, men and women alike, is cardiovascular
When
disease.
here's
And microplastics is absolutely part of this story and the explanation as to why.
and here's what's the most frightening to me about all of it is that we did this.
Oh, for
Like the
sure.
planet did not have these harmful things. Like nature did not do this. We did it.
Yeah,
Like we
we
are
did it.
har it's just like I was saying, like we're extending that kind of behavior of we are hurting ourselves, and then we do it even on a personal level. Like we're doing it in the foods that are created and the businesses that are out there trying to serve us, but they're really doing a disservice to us. And then we carry that hatred and that anger towards ourselves as well. Like
Yeah.
it's got to stop. There was someone I was talking to on my podcast, Everyday Ancestral, where they said something that was really like it was really interesting. So they were talking about corporations and how corporate think, like how we should really rethink what a corporation is. And she used the example of like instead of a corporation coming to a place and saying, and let's say they see a river and they might go like, okay, we need to get rid of that river so that we can build our corporation here. She was saying, what if the corporation instead said, how can I build the corporation to be more like the river? And I thought, wow, that's a really interesting perspective of like, and one I think we can all carry into life is like, here I am around these people or this nature or whatever it is. I'm in my day to day life. Like, how can I, instead of trying to change everybody else and everything around me, and it's not necessarily about how do I change myself, but how do I be in this world that and have it be closer to the nature that's around me? Like, how do I serve the nature versus the nature serving me? Because nature is, right? Nature's there. It's going to do its thing. But right now we think we have to conquer it. And it's like that is doing nothing but harm to us.
No. Of course. Of course. I can't help but be reminded of, do you remember the movie Baby Mama? I quote it at least twice a week.
With Brooke
Um,
Shields?
with no, with Tina
Oh,
Fey
that
and
one. Yeah, yeah,
Amy
yeah, yeah.
Poehler.
I was thinking,
Um,
yeah, I know what you're talking about now.
it was a hysterical movie, and Steve Martin, essentially, I mean, he's supposed to be like the founder of Whole Foods, right? I forget what it was called in the movie. But in one scene where they're building their flagship, and Steve Martin brings in a shell, and he says to the executive team, I want you to make the store like this shell. And the one of the executive VPs says, "You want it to look like the shell?" And Steve Martin turns around and he's like, "I can't even talk to you when you use that tone," even though like he
Yeah, there was
wasn't
no
using a
sound.
bad tone.
Ah,
Um,
that's so funny.
and Tina Fey said, because she gets him, she said, "You wanted to have the essence of the shell." And he was like, "Exactly, Kate. That's exactly what you were saying. Sorry, I flipped on you, Rick." And that's what we're missing, is that this is about having the essence of nature in us at all times, even though we're living in a monarch world. We have to maintain that essence of nature. You have done that with pluck. How do we get to pluck?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, you can find us at our website, eatpluck.com. You can find us on Amazon. And yeah, just give it a try. We have lots of ways for you to try it. You can sample it. You can we have a sample pack, or you can start small, start easy, and see how you like it. But my hope is that it becomes a mainstay because I really do believe this will help. There's lots of things I've found in my 20 years plus years in this business that I think, like I said, are the illusion of health. They say that they're healthy, but they ultimately actually hurt us. I really do believe we cannot go wrong with organ meats. So whether it's getting them through pluck or through if you're more apt to taking a supplement, that's fine, or eating them yourself, just buying them and cooking them and incorporating them in your diet. I just want you to eat organ meats. However you do that is great by me. And please let me know how you feel once you start getting them in your diet, because I believe that you're going to feel a lot better.
Amazing, amazing. James Barry, thank you so much for being here today. It was a great conversation, and I know that people are really going to enjoy it. And I so appreciate your perspective, that I don't come to eating animals easily, for whatever the reason. And I do understand both sides of the argument. It just doesn't, eating animals doesn't resonate with me. But I completely understand the value. And I also understand that there is no one diet for all of humanity, and we are all different. And I loved that you said that that there's one person that will never lie to you, and that's your body, and you need to be intuitive. And I was never so sick as when I was a pure vegan. So we all have to dial in and listen to what our body needs and give it what it needs. And this is one amazing way of helping to nourish your body in a way that is very ancestral.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. And thank you all for joining me today. And if you enjoyed this conversation, then make sure that you like it, share it, make sure you follow us, and know that I will be back next week, same time, same place. It's Dr. Jen. Bye for now.